We'd like to begin this episode with a trigger warning. The episode does include a conversation about sexual violence. If that's something that may be triggering for you, you might want to skip this week's episode and wait until next Friday for episode 12. Joey Lim is the co-founder of Young Women Against Sexual Violence. Fueled by her own experience, Joey and her organisation have made a huge impact, creating a safe space for women as well as changing the culture surrounding sexual assault. With amazing events such as This Is Why I Didn't Report event, Young Women Against Sexual Violence is paving the way to inform, share and change the way people think regarding sexual violence. A truly amazing organisation and a wonderful human being. This is episode 12 of the Voice of Youth podcast featuring Joey Lim from Young Women Against Sexual Violence. So welcome Joey from YWASV or Young Women Against Sexual Violence. Sorry, I had to do the abbreviation first. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, no worries. Thank you for inviting us.
You good? Everything all right?
Yeah, all good.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm great. Right. Thank you so much
amazing.
For asking.
No
there
worries.
You go, straight off the bat. Right, so why don't you tell us about your organisation?
Yeah, so Michaela and I co-founded this organisation last year in October. So it's been like a whole journey. We've had at least, 15 events.
Not even a year in.
Yeah, not even a year in.
Incredible.
So we've had we've organised our own 8 events. Then we've been invited to speak at conferences. We've been invited to help out in workshops and speak and share our stories there. So it's been a really, really good journey. And we wanted to create that safe space and vulnerable a space for women and anyone who's experienced sexual violence to share their stories and to know that they're believed, supported, and to know that we're here to empower each other. So yeah, because ever since, Michaela and I have both experienced sexual violence ourselves.
Of course.
And when I had experienced it, I didn't tell anyone that for one whole year. And I just felt so alone in that space. And so I don't want anyone else to feel alone in that situation. So that's why we started this.
Amazing. Well, a huge thank you again, because obviously it takes a lot of courage to speak about this. And I think your story and what you're doing is truly inspiring. So just on that, have you guys got like a clear mission or vision that you could sum up for us?
So we hoped to, a dream, if we could change the beliefs and attitudes of the community of what sexual violence is, because we know very much that even speaking to your friends, when I first told my friend about my sexual violence experience, she said, as a concerned friend, she said, oh well, maybe you should stop being too flirtatious next time. And so these kind of things kind of invalidate your experiences, and they kind of normalize these stories or your experience of sexual violence. So that's why we want to educate the community of how to effectively talk to someone who has experienced sexual violence and how to recognize and understand us. So
amazing.
Yeah, that's what we want to do.
And specifically, what's your role within the organisation?
So I'm the co-founder of Young Women Against Sexual Violence. So we basically run all these events, doing all the marketing and all that kind of jazz, emailing people, the musicians and artists. So it's literally just been Michaela and I doing all these events. So it's been hectic.
Incredible.
But it's good. It's good.
and does it help that you're running it with your best friend? And also, more importantly, someone that's had similar experiences. Yeah,
100%. Michaela and I actually never knew each other before that. So, it was really weird. So, we actually started the organisation not as actual friends.
And wasn't it a uni project as well?
So, I did this entrepreneurship unit at YWASV. And so, they asked a question, what is a personal problem that you want to solve? And so, everyone else had, all these products and services and my cohort. And I was like, okay, well, I want to do something about sexual violence. But I don't know what kind of service or product I want to sell. But I was like, I'm just going to go with it because that's a personal problem that I want to solve. And so as one of the tasks that we had to do for the unit was to interview people to see if there's a demand in the market for that need. So everyone else's market was just young people. They can talk to anyone about the product or service. But I had to talk to people who have experienced sexual violence. So I want to interview people. Then I interviewed Michaela. And so Michaela was like, oh yeah, I'm really passionate for this. I actually want to do something. And I was like, oh crap, I want to do something too. So then that's how it started. So we're like, you know what, let's just make an organization. We're like, you know what, let's do it. So that's how it started.
Amazing.
Yeah. And sorry.
But that is incredible, and I think the fact that you guys have had that experience, I think it's so brave of both of you to be able to come on and do something like 100%. This, because like you said, it was a university project, but you've seen that you can make a bigger impact afterwards, and it's amazing. And obviously we'll get into it more. You talked about your personal experience. How do you think that specifically has affected the way that you've done this? So I never really want to do anything about this, like never want to do any of like this feminist kind of work or like advocacy and like, you know, justice and all that kind of stuff. I was never that type before. When it came to like female empowerment, I was like, ugh, what is this? But after my experiences, after talking to people, talking to my friends about this, we'd always talk about it within our friend group, but we never wanted to reach out or actually like educate the community that there's something wrong. Like, this is the reason why we're talking only among ourselves. And so I was, you know, there was some like passion in me, and I just really wanted change to happen in the community. So that's how I feel like it started from there. So and I think noticing the signs when I started sharing my stories, even sharing my stories in the organization, it helped me to accept it and to help me actually recognize these signs and red flags about relationships. And I feel like this has helped me in my whole healing journey, this whole like organization. Because at the start, when I first shared my story for the first time, through my organization, I literally just started crying, like bawling my eyes out. I had to run to the bathroom right after because it was just so confronting. But then, you know, it comes to practice, you know, keep sharing your story and keep like, you know, actually identifying those things. And that's how, you know, it made me so much better. Does it get easier almost each time you share it?
100%. I feel like it got so much easier to share it to people, and it also made it easy because you had so many like people who would come like, you know, talk to you afterwards and saying like, thank you so much for sharing your story because I've experienced this too. So not only is it like a healing journey for me, but it was a healing journey for a lot of other people who thought that this was normal, but they realized from hearing my story that this is something that's actually wrong. So
now, of course, we have got a trigger warning put in before. If you don't mind, is it possible that we could know your story for the people 100%. Out there?
Yeah, so when I was 18, I had experienced rape through a guy friend. And so I thought like, okay, well, it's a guy friend, surely he's not going to do that. And I just thought, well, okay, it's uncomfortable sex, it's fine. And I had sex with him maybe, I think, a few times before. So I thought, okay, well, like, this is fine, it's fine. But something about it was just so uncomfortable. And it lingered on, so I stopped talking to him for at least, like, a whole year. It's been 2 years. And I just started normalizing the experiences. When I finally told my friend, she said, like, oh, maybe you're being too flirtatious, maybe don't flirt too much, don't do these kind of things. And I started blaming myself. And when I didn't tell anyone this for one whole year, I finally told someone after that year, I realized that he actually sexually violated 3 other women. And so he sexually violated 2 of my friends. One I found out through the organization. And so that was very confronting because I thought like I was filled with so much disappointment and guilt that maybe if I told someone earlier that these 3 women wouldn't have experienced it. But I know this is just a reminder even for everyone who have experienced this, that this is your own emotional journey. Don't force anyone to share your story because, you know, it's a healing journey, and take your time. It may take you 1 year, it may take 10 years, and that's okay. From there, that's how it started. And, you know, I think from there, I started getting into really toxic relationships. And so I got into a really toxic one when I was, I think, 19 or 18, and he was 24, 25. And that's a really red flag, the age gap.
Of course.
So when I tried to break up with him, he would threaten me, saying that he was going to send pictures of my like explicit pictures to my friends and family. So he would screenshot my friends and family's like Facebook profiles, Instagram profiles, and send it to me, saying I'm going to send it to them. So that was very confronting. So I stayed in that relationship for 5 months after that because I was just so scared of what he was going to do. And he would say things like, you deserve to die, you deserve to get raped, you deserve to get gang raped. And so I thought this was, this was normal. Man. Yeah. And to think I thought this was normal, it is bizarre for me now.
I guess that just kind of outlines a problem.
Yeah, 100%. So I didn't tell anyone this for like, because I thought this was normal in a relationship. Because that was like one of the first few relationships I've ever had. And then I finally told someone, and then she was like, "Oh,
that's not normal."
Yeah, yeah, and so that's how I actually got out of it. When I finally told my friends about it, like, no, that's not normal. That's like that people don't do it. That's psychotic.
But it's like mental to think that can even get to that stage.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I was just so trapped in that. So I didn't tell anyone that. But yeah, I think from sharing those stories to friends and people, you start recognizing that, and so yeah.
And just hearing that story again, amazing of you to thank you for sharing. It just shows how, I guess, it gives you a bit of an understanding what can happen, but it does come in many ways, doesn't it? Sexual violence, it's not just a physical aspect. How could you maybe help our listeners maybe understanding of what sexual violence as a concept is?
So I feel like people do misinterpret what sexual violence is. They always think it's something that's very physical, but sexual violence can be psychological, the verbal abuse, emotional abuse, the manipulation that comes in that. And the stats already show it that most perpetrators of sexual violence are people that we know. Yeah. And it's not someone in like an alleyway. It's not like what the movies portray to be.
Of course.
I feel like people, like kids or even children, they think that, okay, well, rape or sexual assault, it only happens with like strangers because that's what the movies say. Or like it has to be really violent, that's what the movies say it to be. But it's not. Like sometimes it happens in closed doors, it happens in relationships. And it's so scary to think that people are like, what? Like it happens in relationships, like you get raped in a marriage. People think that, and it's just because when it comes to consent, that becomes also blurred. Yeah. Because you're like, okay, well, like how can you like get sexually assaulted in a relationship? But consent is an active process. 100%. Yeah. So
it's not like something that you can just say. And it refers to the future. It's in the now.
Yeah. It's not. There's no like. So if I could consent on Monday morning, but I may not consent on Monday night.
Exactly.
It's different. It's ongoing. You have to keep asking, and it's you have to have a passionate yes into it, and also understanding their kind of body cues in that, because they could say yes.
Exactly. I mean, you notice there that yes doesn't necessarily mean they're comfortable. I guess there are other cues. So you're 100%. Explaining them. What were they?
Yeah, that's the body cues of that. Maybe they were like shaking, or like they were avoiding your eye contact, or they just seem very scared. And you have to be like really aware on this, because this may not be the only like way to recognize it. There are also so many other ways. So yeah, it has to be an ongoing active process. And like relationships do not mean consent. Friendship does not mean consent. Marriage does not mean like consent at all. You have to continually, actively say it. Yeah.
And stuff that you've even said there, stuff that I can admit I didn't even know about. So it goes to show that there's a lot of misunderstanding maybe within community, and especially within males, that this information is maybe missing. Do you think maybe schools do enough, or do you think there needs to be more of an education involved?
Yeah, I just feel like all these schools have different consent education or sexual health relationship curriculums.
100%.
But I feel like that it would be so good if we could have a holistic approach in this. New South Wales is already improving their consent education. Like, how about WA? We gotta
come on.
Yeah, I'm like, come on WA, come on. You gotta get back on track. And I've been talking to some parents, and some parents are telling me like their 14-year-old kid doesn't want to go to PE class anymore because like boys would like look down, sexualize them, and this is a 14-year-old kids. And we can see like in stats it says the highest bracket of perpetrators are male offenders from 14 to 19. The highest bracket for victims of sexual assault is girls aged 14 to 19. So you can see there's already a gap here in primary schools and high schools. And I think that I feel like consent education, sexual health education right now is not enough.
Well, it shows that there's no excuse. Obviously, there is obviously probably a lot that's out of maliciousness, but there is some over miseducation. But by the sounds of stories, and even we heard from you on another podcast, the YC Chats podcast a few weeks ago, that even still some boys do it and don't know that they've done it.
Yeah, 100%.
And it might take a year, a couple of years for them to understand or come to that conclusion that maybe that they have committed sexual violence.
So like my perpetrator, he didn't recognize that for a good like maybe 1 year or 7 months. Then he finally recognized what he's done wrong, and so there'll be times when he would send me messages and he'll unsend it. He'll call me, then he'll not call me, and that's been like he'll be doing that for 2 years. But obviously I wouldn't see the messages. I would always hang up the call because I was just so like scared. I had like that freeze response, and I was like, what do I do?
Must have been like
it was so. I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Like, what's he gonna say? He's gonna like tell me all these things, threaten me. So it was International Women's Day this year, so I thought, you know what?
Amazing.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, you know what? It's better than my birthday, better than Christmas.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do something good.
Incredible.
So I went to forgive my perpetrator.
Amazing.
And yeah, it's been 2 years since I've ever contacted him. And so I sent him a message saying, hey, whatever happened in the past, I just want to say that I want to let it go and I want to forgive you. So I sent that message. It was it was like even a short, simple one, 100%. And I just and when I sent it, I just started crying. It's like
weight
the
off
weight,
your shoulders.
100%. And
I guess it didn't even matter what he would respond with, because like you said, it was about you expressing that. And do you think that maybe made him a better person?
I feel like. I mean, obviously
you can't tell.
When it comes to like victims of sexual violence, I guess it's your own journey if you want to forgive or not.
Perfect way to say it.
Because you may not want to forgive the perpetrator like at all, ever, and that's okay.
Completely fine.
Yeah, and then maybe that's your way of dealing with the situation. But for me, I wanted to give that kind of peace for myself.
Right.
So I went to forgive, and so then he messaged me. He was like, actually, all those unsent messages on like all those calls were actually because of this. And so he was like, can I have a call with you? So we had a call the next day. I was so scared.
Right.
But I just kept on reminding myself, like, why should I be scared? Because whatever he does, like, he has no power over that. He will not, this will not change the narrative. Because I believe in what I, like, believe in right now.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So I had a call with him. He said, like, I just want to say after all these years, I'm sorry. And from hearing that, he used to deny what he's done.
Yeah.
He would even say like, oh no, but you did this and this, I thought you wanted it, these kind of things. It's like, oh, but you were drunk, and I was drunk too. That was his excuse. But from that to saying I'm sorry is such a big change for him. Even I told him like, hey, I just want to say I'm proud of you. And even those words, I'm proud of you, he said like, thank you, I really needed that. So perpetrators can change.
Yes, of course.
Some.
I mean,
not all.
Of course. And always you can never really know.
Yeah.
Because it could be completely irrelevant to their journey. But, I mean, by the sounds of it, you did have a positive impact.
Yeah.
And not just for yourself, but for the community. And I guess sharing your story like you've done now, how do you think that affects people? Obviously, it empowers people to speak up, but from your personal experience, have you seen a difference from when you shared your story?
It did help for my friends to recognize these things. I had a chat with my friend. She was saying like, oh yeah, I just realized like after coming for your event, I realized in my past relationship, all those acts, they weren't actually consensual. And people have been coming up to me more often saying like, I've experienced this. Is that like sexual assault? I'm so confused. And I'm like, oh, like I would tell them these things and like, oh, thank you. Like I really needed that. Even guys who went for, like one of my guy friends who went for my event, they even went up to me saying like, this is happening in the community. I'm like, yes, it's happening. And so like they're just so astounded, like just in awe that these things are happening. Hearing people's stories is so different compared to like seeing the stats. It's completely different.
And again, it shows like people don't know this stuff, and it's still completely out there.
100%.
And now you mentioned the event, that was the Why I Didn't Report event. From what we saw and read, it sounds completely amazing. I'm sure it was. Why don't you explain to us what that was?
That was one of the biggest events we've ever had. So that was a hectic. The first event we ever had, which we actually had to have volunteers. So Why I Didn't Report is an event where we had 50 letters from the community, just literally people would even know, 50 letters of people sharing the stories of why they didn't report to the police of their sexual violence experience.
Right.
Yeah, so that was really impactful. And on top of that, we had 3 women in the community share their stories of sexual violence, whether it be poetry or their other form of sharing their experience. And I think that was really impactful to see that, and seeing 200 people attending it. and like it's a mix of like every gender, everyone, and it's just so nice to see that kind of community coming together and hearing that. We even had someone coming from that event saying like, oh, after that day, she had experienced CPTSD her whole life ever since then, but after that day was one of the easiest days of her life. And it was just so nice to hear that. I was like, oh,
that's like a reminder of why you do what you do.
Yeah.
And that letter format, that's incredible. So what was the inspiration behind that?
Well, it's from, I guess, the police. It's really hard to report.
100%. There's obviously that stigma around, like, will they believe me?
Yeah.
Am I saying it wrong?
Exactly. I was like, oh, it's too tedious. They're gonna they're not gonna believe me, that kind of things. So every time, like, I'd always talk to my friends. They always mention the police. They're like, oh, are you gonna report? Like, do you want to report? It's always about reporting, but there's always some barriers towards it. So that's why we're like, okay, we want people to know why don't we report. Because I was talking to a guy friend, I was talking about my experiences, and he was like, well, why don't you guys just report? I'm like, no. Like, why don't you just... No.
And especially within, like, everyone, first impact is, I didn't do it. They didn't believe me.
Yeah. Like, you think it's that easy to just report like that? I'm like, okay, let me create an event for this.
Yeah, right.
So, we created this event because, these questions... I think people need to know. People need to know why we don't report.
Okay. Just to clear it, so if you know someone that this has happened to, saying go and report it or why didn't you report? That's a big no, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's alright to ask that, but there's just
in a completely different way, maybe comfortable or
in a safer way, not like. It's not like, well, why don't you report? I'm like, oh,
raw,
no.
condescending.
100%.
Right, okay. All right, hopefully people get across that as well. And you said that people that said their stories, they were very powerful as well.
Yeah, there were so many. I mean, so many actually, oh my gosh. And I just read them and like, wow, it's just, you start resonating with them.
100%
and you're like,
relating.
I think even with the previous event we had, it's called Letter to a Perpetrator. We had women share the stories of, like, if you were to write a letter to your perpetrator, what would you say?
Yeah.
And we had a woman, like, start crying. And she was like, and I thought it was, like, something bad. I'm like, oh, no. She started crying because she didn't know, like, she thought she was the only one. But hearing those letters, like, it's so relieving to see that kind of support system you have there.
And I guess it's almost like, it's a strength in solidarity in numbers. So much happens.
So with the letters, we had so many things we resonated with like not believing you were a friend, like, and I guess the fear of reporting,
100%,
and the stigma that comes with that.
And the feedback you received was good. I'm assuming. Sounds amazing.
Oh my gosh.
And how did that feel for you?
It made me feel so relieved because I think this was something that was, like such hellhole for me last time, experiencing sexual violence. But you can't change the past. We can change how it relates to you.
Amazing.
So I turned that bad thing into something I want to make in people. I want to empower other people and make sure that it's a safe environment. So doing these events, obviously I always get like frustrated, exhausted with all these plannings. But then after these events, when people actually come up to you and sharing their testimonies, that like fuels me. That literally fuels me to like do more and keep going.
And just quickly, we're going to quote that: you can't change the past, but you can change how it relates to you.
Exactly.
Quote Joey. No, that's outstanding. Superb. Now, so the event obviously was a huge success, and I just found it interesting there that when I asked you how did it feel, you said it was a relief. Which you might say, oh, it was great, it's fantastic, it was awesome, I felt so good about myself, but you said it was a relief. It's a relief that there's people that have helped people. It's not even about yourself, and like you said, it's that solidarity, that collective of trying to improve and trying to spread awareness, which I think is absolutely outstanding. Because
I feel like if after everything I've experienced, if I can at least impact or save one person, I feel like everything I've been through is just so worth it.
Amazing. Superb. Awesome. And so the event was great, and are there more events in the future? Is there more stuff that you want to do? Yeah, we want to make bigger events. We hope that we can collaborate with people with who do sexual health or consent education. Maybe go into schools in the future, and hopefully this organization doesn't need to exist anymore. That's a dream. That's incredible. Well, if we can help in any way, obviously we'll
yes.
put our hand forward. But speaking of collaborations, you did collaborate with the UWA Women's Collective. How was that?
That was good. It was, so we had, we were supposed to have another event with them, but we did have one where we were in a panel discussion with them. That was really fun. We did
Talk to us about that. What was that?
Yeah, so we had a panel discussion with all these other women entrepreneurs, and that was during International Women's Day, and we're just sharing our stories of how we started. And yeah, and I thought this was just an entrepreneurship like talk, and it was like, okay, whatever. But when we went to talk to other people after that, I was talking to a girl who just started uni, and I just told her like, yeah, we started this organization, and she didn't listen. She was like late to the event, so she didn't know what we were doing. She's like, oh, I just wondering what you guys do. I'm like, oh, you do this, and I told her, oh, we want to create a safe space because I know how it feels like to be alone, and we want to know that you believe and you're not alone. And she just started crying. Oh. Yeah, and I just hugged her, and I'm like, you're not alone, it's okay. And I just think like that's just so nice to see. I mean, obviously it's bad that she's 100%. Crying, but like it's just so nice to see that we're able to provide that kind of safe space for people.
And that safe space obviously is the main aim. And then eventually you're also trying to change a culture. And
the culture.
And like you said, it was a uni event, UWA Women's Collective, so it's at the target age, and like you said in the statistics before, it's around the age that it occurs the most, or that perpetrators done the most. How do you think that these events, shape the perceptions of people and maybe almost change their definitions of what sexual violence is? Yeah,
I think because with sexual violence, it's just a word that you hear, and you think, okay, well, you always interpret it with like maybe what the movies or songs say, but once you hear people's unique stories of sexual violence, you're like, what? Like, this actually happens. Like, this is what someone did to someone. And so, I think that does start to change perceptions of it. People start to recognize the actions and like, oh, was that consensual or was that not? People are a lot more careful now with, And
do you think that almost lets people know that maybe past experiences, which has maybe they felt a certain way about, confirms that it was? So maybe they didn't know in the past that it was defined, and I put the fingers up because there is no definition. It completely revolves around yourself. Do you think that's maybe opened up their eyes and realised that maybe they've been a victim or even a perpetrator of sexual violence? 100%. So I was talking to a parent, and she was saying like even her husband, who used to be like a rugby player, even he was feeling guilty. He's like, I was always hanging out with so many ladies last time, and then he was actually so frustrated. He was like, I think I probably may have done things that weren't consensual, and so just recognizing these things, it's really the next step. Yeah, right. So, amazing. And we're talking about your events and your collaborations. You were also nominated for a WA Youth Award. Well done. Come on.
Nominated.
Yeah, we were. Yeah. Incredible achievement, right?
It was an amazing opportunity. We got to know so many people with, like, they have done amazing things.
Yeah, right.
It's just amazing to be like in a space full of just like amazing people like this. Wow, I don't know how to describe
and all so young talented. As well.
Yeah, also young, so wise.
Obviously about that youth empowerment.
Yeah, exactly. That's what voice of youth. Let me go.
Always there you go. But that's amazing. So and I guess with young women against sexual violence, what's the next steps? Where are you going from here?
I mean, we want to do more events. Reach out to like the reason why we do these events in like public spaces, bars, exhibitions, because we want to reach out to different communities,
right?
And spread that awareness.
Amazing.
We want to keep doing that, and also hopefully get into schools. Maybe like be able to make a big like organization empire or something like that, where we can just share our stories and let people know like these are the red flags to recognize these signs, and hopefully it'll be a safer space and place for everyone in the community.
Amazing. So overall, I guess your final thoughts on the whole experience. What have you taken away? We'll talk about you specifically, I guess, with this whole journey that you've been on.
I feel like it's been so refreshing. Right. I feel because it's like this organization has given me an avenue to heal, to help me to express, and also not only that, but like to help other people in this situation, because I know there's a lack in it, and especially in the community, there's a lack in it for people who've experienced this. There's nowhere for them to go, and I feel like the community needs so much improvement in this. I have consent from my friend, so she did tell me that she went to an event last time, and there was a guy who literally poured a whole like drink on her hair because she didn't finish the drink. Then he pulled up her skirt all the way to the point where you can see her underwear, and this was in a public space. And she told me when she looked around, she saw people laughing at her, and not just people, there were girls, women. And I thought, like, do you think if you were in her place, if you were also that one, would you be laughing too? And so there's just like, there's so much lack of understanding in this. So I feel like it's just so important for the community to know this, to understand, and believe in us.
Of course. Well, like you said, hopefully eventually you don't have to do what you do, but till then you're doing an outstanding job. We've loved having you on. Guys, we're going to put all your socials, all your promotion work, we'll try to get that out on through our social media platforms and through the links below, like in our YouTube link. Thank you. You've been incredible. Like, opened my eyes. I'm sure you're going to open many people's eyes and ears, and hopefully keep on changing the world one. Hopefully big step
you too.
We're just trying to be like you.
Look at you, best of you. There you go.
Guys, thank you so much for listening. We really hope this was a really special episode, so we really hope that you did take away something from it, and if you can spread that information, you'll be helping as well. We've got a lot of other episodes that we've released as well. Please feel free to check them out. Thank you so much again for listening. We hope you're well, we hope you're safe, and we will speak to you again soon. Bye bye.